Hello again, this is Lino Tadros. I have one more thing to add to the previous video. I did actually use the deployment for the prompt flow, and I actually ended up testing it and consuming it in Python. But I received a question actually in the forum asking me if I can do this with curl or Postman instead, because some people are getting 403 and 401 authorization problems or bad header. So let me go ahead and do that in Postman as well to show you what's the trick on making this happen. The trick here, folks, after the deployment takes place, if you go to models and endpoint, you will notice at the bottom in here I have a brand new endpoint. And if you click on this get endpoint, it will give you all the stuff that you need. First of all, the endpoint URI right there, that's important. And of course, the API key that I'm going to need in whatever application, in our case will be Postman, for instance. So I'm going to copy this endpoint, for instance, to the clipboard. Let me keep this on. I'm going to bring in Postman here. Let me bring it into this monitor, show you what's going on with this guy as well. All right. I created a brand new workspace called Azure AI Foundry. It doesn't have any collections or any requests yet. I'm going to create one. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go ahead and say new, and we'll create a collection. We'll call this one vision if we want to, or whatever we want. And then I'm going to state my first request in Postman. And this one will say get receipt info, or again, you can call it whatever you want. And this one, we know it has to be a post, all right, because we're going to send the entire base64 image to it. And I'm going to get the endpoint that I just copied and pasted from my my deployment. So there it is. That is the one that ends with the /score. That's an important piece as well. There is a lot of different ways to enter the API key, by the way. The way I prefer to do it, you can do it in the params, you can do it from authorization by going to the API key. Notice there's one in here called the API key. You can do it based on the bearer token, but I keep them all together under the header in here. So if I click on header, I'm going to come in here and we're going to say authorization, and the value of it, I'm going to go back to my endpoint. Let me bring it up in here for a second. That is the key. I'm going to copy my key from right there. Now I don't need this anymore. I can close it. And let's get back to Postman. Alrighty. And I'm going to be able to paste it right there. Well, that's not 100% correct. I know there is some documentation out there that actually says that the authorization is this API key, or sometimes they say that the key itself needs to be called API-key. Well, it is authorization, but you need to go right before that key and you need to put the word bearer with a capital B and a space right after it. Otherwise, this will not work, unfortunately. Okay, so I'm going to save all the stuff for right now. I'm done with my header. Now I need to concentrate on the body. So in the body, we'll go to raw, and I'm enter my JSON myself. So we'll come in here. We'll say I'm going to create something called photo. It has to be called photo because that's what my my prompt flow had. And inside of this double quote, let me bring up also the dev toys one more time. I'm going to copy the base64 of my receipt. We'll say copy this guy. And I'm going to be pasting it right inside of these double quotes. All right, now let's go ahead and say save. All right, it's a moment of truth. I think I'm ready. So the headers in here, make sure that the content type is application/JSON. That's another mistake a lot of people actually were complaining about. That is going to text. It doesn't work. The authorization has to be bearer space and your API key. And in the body, we'll have to have a JSON object that contains actually the name of the element that you've created in the prompt flow and the base64 in here. All right, let's go ahead and give it a shot and see if this will work. Click on send. Drums rolling, please. And if we've done everything correctly, Postman should be able to send this. And yes, it did work. The date on the receipt is November 22. And notice it's 5139. And the guest dining is 2. Everything in this one is 100% correct as well, which is great. Hopefully that was useful to you, to show you a little bit of tricks on how to get that working. Will be pretty much the same thing if you do curl. Just remember that you have to pass the application JSON. The API key has to be a bearer before it. So it's the same thing like Postman. If you're using Fiddler, it's the same way, or any other tool that will send a post request to be able to get this response back. Hopefully this was useful. I hope you can like this and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you again in a future video. Thank you so much.